For me, and again, not a musician, they have eclipsed pretty much anything I will ever do ever in my life. But Saint Anger, the drums sucked. So I think this, the song would actually be listenable if someone re-recorded it. I think it actually might be a good song. If someone did that, I'd be interested in hearing that. And I think it was Saint Anger recorded during when they were shooting that Some Kind of Monster video.
I don't remember.
I think it was when they had that that psychiatrist guy on staff that was absolutely grifting them in the end. Watching someone who's ethical, it's kind of tangential to us, right? But watching someone
apropos,
yeah, I'll have to look that up. Whose ethical requirements, I guess might be the word, or ethics, is striking directly against their financial incentive, as in my belief was happening in that movie. And I really suggested if you not only enjoy Metallica but enjoy the psychology of group dynamics, very, very interesting. But we run into that on why we keep the whole media agnostic thing. We really don't care where the strategy takes us. If it takes us there, it takes us there. Be it a billboard, or handing out donuts somewhere, or whatever the case may be, or a really heavy omni-channel digital campaign. That when that slams into you, that this is ethically what should be done, and be able to watch someone live wrestle with that, both in themselves and with the people they're dealing with, was interesting.
Yeah, it's hard to put parameters on output. Once the idea leaves the idea factory, it doesn't. You have to just let it go. So Saint Anger is a perfect example of that, where Metallica's been doing this long enough to know that Jim's not going to like something about something that they do, and they don't know who Jim is.
No.
And and so and that's not me saying you're right or wrong. It's the way you receive it, and that's what you feel.
Well, because once it leads them, it's no longer theirs.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Once it's gone, it does not.
Someone's firing up the Ironmonger armor outside. It's Obadiah Stane. Watch out.
Every time we sit down and record, there's some kind of fun sound effect that is in the background. And this one's really...
Is that an elephant?
Yeah, it's unique.
Mechanical Elephant. Yeah. That's a band.
Mechanical Elephant. Yeah, but it is you let it go, and it exists. And the people that get caught up in it do tend to get stuck in, I'm not going to put things out anymore until I'm ready. A great example of that is some of the artists that have really done amazing things, but not as prolific as they could have been. And so hang on, now the Mechanical Elephant is backing up.
He's backing up.
And Metallica is one of the ones that I think has had a very interesting journey through music, and there's ego, there's hubris, there's all that stuff that comes into play.
Yeah, and a lot of that comes out in Some Kind of Monster.
Yeah, where it's either way, musicians don't really make a lot of money anymore off of the release of albums.
I was actually listening to the Economics of Everyday Things. I don't know if you're familiar with that podcast, but they got into the song My Sharona, and how the financial breakdown of that worked. And really, the real money was around the music, rhythm, and lyric rights. That's where,
right.
I think there were two gentlemen, I can't remember their names, from the NAC that have those rights, and he's still pulling in $100+ grand a year off of the music rights from that.
And that's why right now there's a big push to snatch up the rights to people. Are there's actually only one or two companies that are doing this, and they're doing it to set out to prove that music, the rights to music, is something that can be traded.
Well, yeah, because I think they're one of them's a publicly traded company, if not both.
Yeah, and what they're doing is saying, look, this is just as good of an investment as anything else.
The wine, art.
Right, but the artists are cashing in because they're like, album sales are what they are.
Yeah, the Beebs sold at what, 300 million, I think?
Yeah, and Bob Dylan was like 800 million for his entire catalog. And you look at that and you go, why would they do that? And you have the inverse, like a Taylor Swift, who's trying to actually go back and remaster and recreate her music to gain ownership over it. And the reality is that for a lot of them, it's their output, and they don't even think about what they made. And Metallica is one that will sell out auditoriums, freaking coliseums across the world, no matter if Saint Anger sucks or it doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
No. And so
and I'm sure they're going to play, some of the songs off that album.
Right.
And it's the idea of kind of that, to wrap back around to that, like ethical creativity, right? I remember when we first started working in the financial space, we had an idea around unbelievable members because at credit unions, customers are generally referred to as members.
Yeah.
And of course, there is a innuendo there.
Yeah.
And we were playing off that innuendo and, the idea of unbelievable members and, having a conversation in a bathroom.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is going to make the podcast. We'll find out.
Oh, well.
But
yeah.
anyways, that was an amazing, hilarious, absolutely friggin' awesome idea that could very well be just such a smash, but also has a dark side and could have been very, very detrimental to a client's business, right? Could have. So when you come across an idea that is, subjectively and maybe even objectively, brilliant, incredibly funny, but that specter's there, how do you square that up?
If it's, first of all, I kind of think of it like there's a ranking and a rating for the idea. So, what are we dealing with here? Is this rated R? Is this rated PG? Is this rated, and no one's going to let us do anything beyond that anyways. But the other part of it is that it needs to be wholesome in a way that can make multiple different audience types laugh. So in the instance of that really didn't gain any momentum. It was a funny thing. It became a meme between us and the client, and here we are, almost 20 years later talking about it still. Not 20, 10 years. 10. Sorry.
I'm not that old.
Yeah.
I'm not 50 yet. Mingu.
But it does, it does have to touch on a few things. It has to be rooted in a universal truth that is behind the idea. So in that particular case, unbelievable members was not something that we had come up with. It was something that was baked into the ethos of that brand and had been for a long time.
Ah, okay. I'm glad your memory is so much better than mine.
And so it was already a known thing, and it was just, we're taking a riff on that known thing. So there has to be some kind of underlying universal truth. Sometimes that universal truth is a harsh truth, and it's my job to figure out how we make it, interesting. In the instance of that particular idea that you mentioned, there was just too much risk but the risk wasn't related to outcry about what is effectively a credit union making a dick joke. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
It was more that the people that would receive it would not understand it. And because the word member as an innuendo didn't have enough strength at the time, there's two types of creative dissonance that I dislike. One is just, hey, I don't like this at all and it sucks. I don't think that's helpful.
Yeah.
Right.
Sane anger.
Sane anger.
Yeah.
I don't think that's helpful. But then there's I don't get it. And to be real, I think I don't get it is worse than I don't like it. It sucks. Because there are many other levers you can pull with an I don't get it response. But to be standing in a boardroom going, yeah, members, and then they're like, I don't get it, and I have to explain what a member is.
It's dead.
It's
so dead.
And so a lot of times I pre-visualize how the pitch of something like that might go. And that's why you'll see me do it a lot with clients at lunch or at dinner or in the cracks of time.
You're kind of casting that line out there and seeing where it's going to go.
I'm saying, let's say hypothetically something like this was, or I'll say, have you seen that new ad from so-and-so that Doritos did? Do you think that's wacky? Like, how are you? Because the gatekeeper is, the person that is paying us to come up with the idea. Once it leaves us and them collectively, to go back to the sane anger point, it's not ours anymore.
No one owns it.
No one owns it. It just is. But our best work, or my opinion of our best work, has always been that it's rooted in some kind of truth. And we're figuring out how to best explain it. A great example is the concept that we've been working on in the last couple of weeks is this remote by JXM. And it started with this concept that we wanted to get out into the world about fractional marketing. And it really originated with you, which is that...
As all great things we do.
Yeah, it's always... The kernel is from Jim, and then the I don't know what you call the outside of the kernel.
You can't have the other nine...
The corn. I bring the corn.
You bring the endosperm. That's the inside of the corn.
Ectoplasm.
Yeah,
I think we're getting into.
Can't. Here's the thing: you can't have 100% of the idea without the 1% that starts it.
That's right.
Without that,
yeah.
And so really, most of your great ideas, if maybe even possibly all of them, when I'm sneaking into your room to play with your feet, you'll have to read a previous podcast, listen to a previous podcast to know why that's a thing. And it may or may not have happened.
Yeah.
But that's when I whisper them into your ear.
Ah, that's when it happens.
That's why you wake up and write in your book, because I've been whispering in your ear muse-like thoughts.
I always say none of this would have been possible with or without you. It's like the YouTube, YouTube.
Not
YouTube. I got YouTube on the brain. But yeah, so it's, when you came with that concept of fractional marketing, it was like, that's great. But even you yourself were terrified of the implications of that on its face, presenting it, because the universal truth of that is that most brands would benefit from a variable expense rooted in their marketing instead of a fixed expense. So why not have JXM be your fractional marketing department? We're there when you need us, and we're not when you don't. And we were both terrified of going to market with that, because the last thing we want to do is alienate a large group of people that would be an audience of ours and possibly collaborators with us, because they feel like we're trying to take their jobs away.
Yeah, because effectively we do both things. We have some clients where we are the entirety of their marketing department. Now they may only be spending a million or more on advertising. So it's not a huge amount that they're focused on. So that allows us to perform that function. But even with other groups where we're a part of their team, we don't want to alienate, like you said, because of that. And that was something I was very, very afraid of this, and still am slightly uncomfortable with it, because I would never want someone to feel like we're there to take. We should be amplifying together as a group to make everything that's being done better, because ultimately the best client partnerships lead to they're helping to improve us as much as we're helping to improve them.
And so I was looking for something in that realm, and so I started with the idea of like turnkey. Like, okay, we're going to be the turnkey service. You need it. And it just felt so flat, because I think everybody uses that.
Yeah,
it's everywhere. So I'm like, what else is available that's rooted in that universal truth? That's something that could serve as a metaphor for something that makes your life easier, doesn't supplant you, and is there when you need it and not. And the idea came to me of a device, a remote, and then
I'm surprised you didn't go with Clicker.
Clicker. Get the Clicker, Tommy. And it started to kind of build off of that. I was inspired to kind of visualize what that would look like. It would be the actual implementation of an object, which it ended up being.
And you selected what I would call an earlier version of the remote control. Obviously, now the ones that we have now are incredibly easy to lose and break. And this is one of those ones. There's heft. There's a PCB board in there. It has heft.
Yeah.
You push the button and it's a mechanical button. Mm-hmm. It's not a touchpad. If you threw this at someone after your favorite sporting team lost their recent engagement, it would harm them.
It would. And that was actually a deliberate choice. Number one, I think that part of my personal favorite aesthetic is rooted in that time period. Mainly because that's when you and I and John and everybody
we're all elder millennials.
Yeah,
so.
and so we remember the VCRs and the remotes and all these things. And so I said to myself, that fits our personalities really well. Where else can I go with this? Because just having a remote be a metaphor for fractional marketing services isn't going to it's going to fall in line with that. I don't get it. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it still could. It's a fragile metaphor, but I don't care anymore because I made it and it's out to the world.
And it's good.
Right.
That's a nice thing about the work we do for ourselves. The only standard, I call it standard A and B. Standard A is that you like it, right? And that will automatically, we're good to go. And it's whether I like it or not doesn't matter to me. I don't know if it matters to you. But I know that if we both like it, which I don't think you've ever made anything that I haven't liked, and whether that's just me being, the first fan or whatever you want to call it, I don't care. Like the remote concept is being used on the cover of the Credit Union Executive Society magazine, and it's being distributed at the GAC, the Government Affairs Council, I think it's Government Affairs Council. I've never gone to it because I don't have affairs with the government. But
you should.
Maybe I should. That I don't know, RFPs and all that that sounds exhausting and tiring, and I don't want it.
I just want you to go to the thing, and I want to hire a cameraman to follow you around and watch your interactions with people.
it could be fun. Maybe I got asked if I was going this year, and I said that I was not. It's
Jim V bureaucracy.
Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.